Howdy, internet friends. We've got a few good videos for you today. In fact, I'm on fire a bit. I am a little bit busy, but I'm going to do a lot of stuff. Let's talk Peter Zion. Remember, he's useless for tactical, but big picture, no one is better than Peter Zion. Nobody. I always say read. I don't read anymore. Well, actually, that's a lie. I did get this. Thank you, Hilda. You know who you are. About ASMR. I usually do audiobooks. I love audiobooks because I love to walk. So audiobooks rock. But I did all 4 of his audiobooks. Thank God for Peter Zion, big picture. But the Stratfor boy, tactical, some of the things he says are ridiculous. Like, he talked about my home state, and it was like, what are you even talking about? There's a big problem with Zion, but big picture. You must listen to him, big picture. We're going to listen to him talk a little bit about China and what's going on currently, make some comments. Then we're going to move on to Steve Bannon and good old General Flynn saying we must dismantle the CIA, the FBI. I'm completely over the drunk, disgusting, cocaine-addicted piece of stinking shit, Steve Bannon. He's a piece of stinking shit. Have I made myself clear? I'm over him. He's a drunk. And whatever good intentions he originally had, this is the guy meeting with Alexander Dugin in Rome. That's a Russian GRU general's son, who's also a Satanist, Aleister Crowley. And again, Steve, if you made a mistake, all you have to do is go, yes, I did meet Aleister Crowley. Meet Aleister Crowley's student, Alexander Dugin, in Rome in 2016. You're correct. Why? It's in the Mueller report, which nobody reads. Russia's fake, Russia's real, it's Russia, Israel. Mueller report, go to the Mueller report. And right in there, Steve meeting in 2016 in Rome, Alexander Dugin, Tucker Carlson loves him too, they've all got a hard on for Putin. They all hate Bibi now, but love Putin. So you work that one out. But this is the games that are played, they're all games, that's what we're going to discuss, the games, the grand chessboard. And then of course, Steve met with Kissinger in 2016 too. Then they all had a big falling out because he hated Jared Kushner, and rightfully so. So good things came out of Steve Bannon's mouth. Then when he's hanging doing coke and hookers and alcohol, drunk off his head most of the time on Miles Gow yachts, who was an out-and-out gangster. I spoke to some Taiwanese people. They said, dude, that guy's just, whatever is good or bad, he's an out-and-out gangster, thug, piece of garbage. Whatever he says about the CCP, which is true or not, it's a piece of garbage. All right, he's not a nice guy. He had a falling out. He's loaded, and he clearly works for the CIA. And that's why they dragged Dickhead Bannon off that. That's why they dragged him off and then charged him. Never forget that. They dragged him off Miles Gow's yacht. Drunk, coked hookers. And they charged him with the wall. Stealing money. Probably not entirely true. Maybe some discrepancies, but it wasn't stealing the money. It's because Bannon is a fucking drunk. And that's a big problem. And then he shut his mouth, didn't he? Now, he's a good little boy, Office of Naval Intelligence. And we're going to hear some absolute garbage come out of his fucking mouth to do with the CIA and the FBI and good old General Flynn. If he ever wanted the biggest traitor to ever walk the earth, ever, it is General Michael Flynn, a grossly incompetent half-wit. If there's a picture of him, it's him with BB schlong in his mouth and him slurping away. That's General Michael Flynn, a whore for Israel from start to finish, who got a lot of American soldiers killed and a lot of Iraqi soldiers killed. Him and McChrystal, the geniuses, the new intel geniuses. We don't go to Washington. We don't do backup checks. We don't go to third parties. We don't do research before acting. We just take the word of Abdul, who's terrified in his house. We just kicked his door in, smacked him around, terrified his kids, put guns to his kid's head, and we just do whatever he tells us. Oh, the next door neighbors, we go there. So after they've killed, maimed, destroyed, terrorized 500 fucking Iraqi families, they finally find one good piece of intel. Now they're fucking heroes. Meanwhile, who hates Americans? Who despises Americans? Oh, the Iraqis despise them. Fancy that. Well done. Bibi's very happy because he loves making Arab Muslims hate America. And Americans just can't wait to line up and help him. That's General Michael Flynn. He is the biggest I spoke to people that worked him, so that guy is such a dickhead. He would yell and scream at people. People would look at him and go, how do you even get this job? He's such a moron. He's not just obnoxious. He's a moron. Him and his brother are morons. Nobody knows how the fuck they ever got their jobs other than I reckon they were taking it in the rear at a Kay Griggs Pentagon tailhook party. I absolutely guarantee General Michael Flynn is taking it in the ass. I guarantee it. He is a literal moron. Don't take a single word that comes out of his stinking, deceitful mouth. He is responsible for J6. They were warned, do not do this January 6th. It's going to be filled with feds. It's going to be filled with God knows who, including a lot of foreign operatives. It's going to be full of private military contractors, and it's going to be full of cliche Democrat operatives. Don't do it. And there's General Flynn. Yes, we will. No greater piece of shit. I hope I made myself clear about Flynn. Let's now talk with Zion. Remember, big picture, the straightforward boy is excellent. Small stuff like, I don't even know what the hell he's talking about, but he says some very interesting things here. One of the things is about China. China's doomed, all right? It's doomed. It's completely dependent on the West. So let's just quit it. If there's a war, it will be arranged. These will be managed, arranged wars, just like they have managed the war in Ukraine. Manage it so that Lockheed and British Aerospace Industries systems, BAE Systems, and Rafael of Israel can get their Lockheed Fusion battle management system. Just remember this, you'll never hear it anywhere else. I've said it over and over. They knew at this worldwide military industrial complex, which is using taxpayer funding to build out the system that will control us all. The automated killing machines, the automated surveillance, and above all, the automated systems of every kind. They've got to get humans out of the loop. That's their biggest problem. Humans. Humans have familial bonds and love their communities and love each other and love their children. They have to get humans out of the loop. So a very small group of people, because there's not that many Jews in the world.
Power resides where men believe it resides. It's a trick, a shadow on the wall. And a very small man can cast a very large shadow.
Can continue to kill us and get rid of us off the face of the earth. Until then, and that'll include killing a lot of Jews too. These people are Armani suit-wearing pieces of garbage up there in Europe. That's where they ultimately hide out. I don't notice none of them getting arrested or losing their assets, but we'll discuss this. We'll see what happens. It's dynamic. But once we understand that system, they knew they would never get another opportunity in Ukraine. That's why they've kept it going. Multiple reasons, but one of them is to get the battle management system data, real-time data. They are collecting weapon system performance, how many drones it takes to kill a turtle tank, how many dead on the battlefield, what were they killed with, bullets, mortars, artillery, drone, what type of drone, was it a drop, was it a FPV drone? Then they tie it all in with things like social media posts of individual soldiers, the locations, the geolocation of individual soldiers, the personal thoughts and feelings of individual soldiers, both Ukrainian and Russian. And they are combining this incredibly disparate data into an unbelievable battle management system. And they know they got to milk this fucking war for all it's worth. They're getting rid of all their old weapons, killing a lot of Slavs. Ukraine will be depopulated. All the alpha males will be dead. They'll be left with all the cowards that ran to the Berlin nightclubs and the Warsaw nightclubs, and they will learn to code. They can then dump all the Hasidim out of Israel. Very interesting what's going to happen there. And of course, Putin will be helpless and he will be rebuilt to threaten Europe to maintain, of course, the battle for Eurasia and justify a US presence on the mainland, which I'm all for. I'm just wondering if you could have done it differently without killing all these Slavs, because I don't know who's ultimately running this in some way, how complicated it is, but I just know that for some reason, somebody loves killing Slavs. I've noticed this for a long time. They love to make sure Slavs are suffering, and there is no group on this earth, not even the Africans or the Asians or any collective, and not even Jews, that have ever suffered the incredible hardship, misery, mass murder, and terror than the Slavs of the region. Nobody. From the shitty life under the Tsar to the shitty, terrifying life under the Bolsheviks and the Stalinists, then going through Khrushchev, where things improved for a little bit, and then, of course, the Great Collapse, 1992, which was horrendous. Slavs never seem to stop suffering, and I don't like it. I really don't like it, and I think there could be a better way, and shame on US elites for doing what you're doing. People are noticing. They notice what you're doing, and you've all got Jesus on your fucking lips, all got Jesus on your lips. And let me tell you, when you start putting Jesus on your lips while you justify mass murder and genocide and all the rest, while you ably assist others to do it, all right, to save a little bit of time, about halfway through, he's going to talk about tariffs, all the confusion, what Doge has done to certain government departments, and things can't get. And I confess I'm not sure what's going on, but it would seem to me that someone within that Trump administration is creating as much chaos as possible outside of the normal chaos by that bunch of reprobates. But of course, as people have said, well, what do we do, Brendon? What do we go? Biden, Kamala, an old senile pedophile and his senile disgusting crack hose son, and the drunk, alcoholic, incompetent Kamala? Where do we go? Well, that appears to be the point. All I know is there is Ari Emanuel, the Vladislav Surkov of the era, seemingly with Susie Wiles controlling this Trump administration. So no one's entirely sure what's going on. There's clearly good things, and there's clearly things which are just inexplicable, other than someone is working with the side of that administration trying to bring the United States down, tying its arms around its back, tripping it up, trying to just harass at every opportunity within the decision-making process. Way too many fucking hardcore Israeli firsters are still at the top of every department. They're deeply running all the cloud infrastructure, the Pentagon infrastructure, the CIA, the DIA, the FBI database are still all Israeli run. And these are the things we're not discussing, but we will discuss them here. And we will prioritize those discussions. It'd be nice if Peter Zion would talk about it. I went on his Patreon. I couldn't get a single response. I couldn't even get I got a couple of replies out of people. Same with Tom Longo, never got a reply. The whole point of Patreon is, or any of these social media platforms, is you get to talk to the person and exchange views with the person who's putting it. And I could never get a reply out of these people. That's why I just dropped out and stopped bothering. Now here's Zion talk about things that are important to understand, boring as they are.
Administration since at least 1995. The difference under Trump, too, is Trump has fired a lot of the people. So we've gone from a federal approval process that was...
Well, Ari Emanuel's boy, the incompetent village idiot, Elon Musk did that with Doge, and I'm sure he had a lot of Israelis helping him.
Slow and sclerotic to one that just doesn't function at all because there's no one to actually evaluate. Which means that for at least the remainder of this administration, if you're going to get electricity, it has to come from within your state. So that state regulatory authorities are the ones who can allow it to cross across jurisdictional lines. In this sort of situation, the states that generally have the best options in front of them are going to be larger because there's a greater diversity of options. And of course, the ones that are able to produce natural gas on their own, because they can take that stuff, put it in a pipeline. The pipeline doesn't have to cross interstate borders. The federal government is not involved. It can go straight to a power plant, whatever it's needed. And Texas is very clearly at the top of that list. I've talked in the past about some of the problems in the Texas power sector. Those all remain. Maybe we'll post what that one is so you can remind yourselves. But Texas still has a leg up on a lot of this. Texas's problem is the tariffs, and most of the economic growth we've seen in the industrial space in Texas since roughly 1995 has been because of the integration with Mexico. About 40% of all Mexican-American trade is just Mexico and Texas, and that is being slammed shut by the tariffs. And Texas, if we can't get some of these federal policies changed, is arguably one of the states that is going to suffer the most. Other states that are just kind of caught in this vice where they can't get the power and they can't get the labor, and federal government is undoing all of the hard work that they've done in the last 30 years, it really comes down to Auto Alley. That's Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and Alabama. These are states that are used to working with foreign entities to help build cars and jets. And the tariffs are basically making that almost impossible, on top of making it more difficult for them to just simply keep up with electricity demand. So those are the three things you need to worry about. And those are unfortunately the three things you need.
Power, 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 electricity, electricity. Oh, and again, will Peter Zion tell us about Rad Group and who actually runs... When I say backend, what I mean is there's things called like Internet of Things, backend, industrial controller chips, all the routers, and there's real backends to all of the automated infrastructure and the ability to remote control your infrastructure, which is vital, whether it be water or power, banks, ATMs. Well, guess who runs all that? One Israeli company. One. I'm not oversimplifying this. One. It's called Rad Group. Good old Yehud and Zohar Zissapel, which we tried desperately to get named by Whitney Webb, but she was too clever, giving us the lowdown on Prince Andrew fucking a 17-year-old. That was much more important. And throwing a few names out there. But these are the things that people like Peter Zion would be helpful if they mentioned that, by the way, all our infrastructure is basically Israeli controlled by a hostile foreign entity, not completely, but largely a hostile foreign entity known for industrial espionage and stealing and theft and spying, who actually also is full of pretend Russian Jews who apparently should be killed, according to the Mueller report. So, you know, this is the problem we face, and that we cannot get this message out. That when we say, you know, I say it to people, all your infrastructure, and you can just see, they've just got this glazed look in their eye. It's just glazed. They don't get it. They say, oh, I get it. But you don't get it, because if you really got it, you would be so viscerally horrified. You would go and do something about it, wouldn't you? Other than, I don't know what you do, but let's keep going. But you know what? Maybe it's not your job. It's not Joe and Jill's job. It's Peter Zion's job. It's Whitney Webb, the greatest journalist ever. Right? It's all the people that have contacted us. You know, these things are handled quietly. It's all under control. Is it all under control? See, you can't trust these people because these people are not in control. That's why you have to create that grassroots wave of popular grassroots awareness. This gives the confidence of those CIA analysts and those FBI, state and federal counterterrorism, state and federal counterintelligence. That gives a grass wave to push past the supervisors, to push past the controllers, to push past the handlers, and to get at these fucking parasitic vermin that are sitting up there like the Ann Neubergers of the world. Man, it's going to take time and perhaps some blood to really get this solved. We'll go on.
Worry about with the federal government acting as a sandbag rather than a springboard. And the last question, what about the defense buildup? The United States is in the process of doubling and perhaps as much as quadrupling its production of expendable munitions, missiles, bullets, artillery shells, everything like that, as preparation for the coming conflicts with both the Chinese and the Russians, or at least that's how the logic goes. For those of you who have been following other...
Or at least that's how the logic goes. What? Who is dare going to go near the United States? Who would dare make war on the beast? Who? These will be managed and arranged. As I said, Lockheed battle management systems are psychologically profiling leaders of countries, their generals, their commanders, their lower stratosphere of general staff down onto the ground, tactical commanders down to individual soldiers, psychologically profiling, looking at morale and comparing all of that data into a huge predictive battle management system. Man, it's going to come out. There'll be write-ups about it eventually. And no one can make war against the beast. So this will be very managed. Once Putin has killed off his officer staff, the best of his people, Xi's done the same, sacked, fired, killed, destroyed his officer staff, then he becomes very easily manageable. Then you can just deal with one person or one small clique and you can control the whole country. And that's the plan for good. That could be, from a cold-hearted geopolitical point of view, good. US elites can easily control China and easily control Russia and do whatever they have to do. They shouldn't have to do that anymore. They should just be controlling with threats of killing and destroying, of stripping them of assets, blocking the Suez Canal, the Straits of Malacca, the Panama, whatever. And that should be the end of that. But they can't. They can't because why? The nuke that's inside the United States, critical infrastructure. I keep telling you. It's not that Bibi's got it over the US. The US will just tell him, you don't have control of our nukes. We'll put a 15-kiloton weapon over Tel Aviv and we'll gut you, you fat pig. So he can't do anything either. But it's a standoff because it's not just about what they could do to US critical infrastructure, turn it all off like that. It's not just that. It's the Jobs, the John Brennans, the Michael Haydens of the world, and all the way back down to Kissinger. And an awful lot of people have got to explain, how did you allow a hostile foreign power filled with pretend Russian Jews from the Russian GRU to completely penetrate Israel and the United States and take over the entire high technology sector? Explain that to us, please. How are they running the CIA, the DIA, the FBI databases, state and federal authorities? They're doing all the telecommunications, government VoIP encryption. How did this happen? How? And people don't believe me. They say, but Brendon, it can't be true. You're exaggerating. Yes, it's serious, but you're exaggerating. Now, it's more complicated. No, it's not complicated. They took it over. Don't thank me. Buy me a drone. That's why you can't get it through to people, because they don't want to believe it. Because they ask, but Brendon, you're just one guy. Do you mean to say you are the person that brought this out into the open? Yeah, one guy. One fucking guy. That's why I've got Colonel, General Milley's top lawyer, Colonel Andrew Kernan, contacting. That's why I've got James McMahon, SAS Colonel, retired, top-level intel, contacted. All the Jesuits and the former PMs of Australia contacting me, wanting to take me out. What can I tell you? Because somebody believes I work for someone. That's what's protected me. Somebody, does he work for ASIA? Is he working for the feds? Is he working for this? Is he a former SAS soldier? No one can just believe that Brendon O'Connell is an ordinary guy. Only the people that know me, my family, my friends from Perth, Western Australia, my former nurse manager, Delilah Guy, amongst the dozens of great people I've met working as a comprehensive registered nurse, they know who I am. But the mystery of the internet is confused, and that's what's protected me. And I got clearly supporters because they've contacted me along the way. It's not that easy to get rid of me like you think, but I'm sure if they really wanted to, they could. But they don't have the balls, and I prayed, and God said, Brendon, you'll live until 120, don't worry about it. They'll all be dead, don't worry. Right? I am Gary Webb. Gary Webb was not the first to point out Iran-Contra issues. 10 years before, 2 other journalists went to report it, but they backed out. They got scared and backed out. The difference between Gary Webb and them and me and the many others who've reported this stuff is I'm too stupid to back down. I said, no, fuck you. It became very personal for me. Threats by police, planting fucking evidence, every dirty, stinking trick. They're so used to getting away with it. They're so used to it.
Conflicts that are going on in the world. The only other conflict the United States is really involved in from an arms supply point of view is Ukraine, and 80% of that aid is stuff that is coming out of mothballs that the U.S. military doesn't use anymore. So for the most part, what's going on with Ukraine has no impact on Americans.
Still good stuff, but it's old. They've got to get rid of it anyway. But it's still, it's still high-tech shit. Just needs a new battery, dusted off, tested.
Stock, so I put that out of your mind. This is all stuff for the United States for the future. I have no problem with this. When you have an expeditionary military that it launches things from a distance, it's all about reach, lethality, and accuracy, and that requires a certain amount of munitions. And gearing up for a long fight is not something that I think I have a problem with, because that's exactly what the military is supposed to do. Now, of those fights, one will require...
That's also an economic stimulus, of course, and we remember the report from Iron Mountain that we require war or manufactured enemies and war to keep the humans busy while we build the infrastructure to lock them down once and for all. That is what the worry is, that they are just delaying because remember, it's not just a Jew thing. It's not a Jew plan. This is an elite plan since forever. How do you cull, control, and keep the population down so you can live in a fucking palace while everyone else lives in dirt?
The heavily footnoted report concluded that peace was not in the interest of a stable society, that even if a lasting peace could be achieved, it would almost certainly not be in the best interests of society to achieve it. War was a part of the economy. Therefore, it was necessary to conceive a state of war for a stable economy. The government, the group theorized, would not exist without war, and nation-states existed in order to wage war. War served the vital function of diverting collective aggression. They recommended credible substitutes and paying a blood price to emulate the economic functions of war. Prospective government-devised alternatives to war included reports of alien life forms, the reintroduction of a euphemized form of slavery consistent with modern technology and political processes, and one deemed particularly promising in gaining the attention of the malleable masses, the threat of gross pollution of the environment.
How dare you!
The report from Iron Mountain, 1967.
These effers are beyond Jews. They're fucking evil, demonic pieces of shit. They live in a fantasy land. Look at Jeff Bezos, $100 million wedding. Did it ever occur to him? Hi, imagine I'm his PA. Look, Jeff, I know you want to put on a $100 million wedding, but look, people in the United States, let alone all around the world, are pretty suffering at the moment. They're really in a bit of tight. I don't think it's good to have a $100 million wedding and put it everywhere and say how wonderful you are. Probably not a good idea. But nobody told him. And Jeff Bezos, the front man, the bullshit, we started in mum and dad's garage bullshit narrative, just another front man for the foundation front, all that stored up money, City of London money from those families being pushed out into the community to control the means of production, the means of transaction, the means of distribution. And then that's how fucking deluded these people are. There's a huge amount of delusion. They are completely separated from reality because they live in the stratosphere. If you were to ask Jeff Bezos, what does a loaf of bread cost? He wouldn't be able to tell you. What does a litre of milk cost? He wouldn't be able to tell you. What's the average rental price in America? He wouldn't be able to tell you. What's a first class plane flight cost? He wouldn't be able to tell you. He has no idea. He has personal assistants who tell him what he wants to hear, tell him how wonderful he looks and how fit on his hormone replacement therapy is, and his hot wife he's banging every night, because he's taken all the right drugs, all the right prescription meds, all his low dose LSD and magic mushrooms to stave off the depression, and his good old ketamine and so on, just like the rest of them. And usually they wear nappies because they're all doing weird things and getting things stuck up their anuses. Ask Donald Trump. And he wears a nappy full time. He can't control his bowels. Maybe Vince McMahon got there in the Jesters Club. Maybe Robert Morrow could tell us all about that. And so these people are just totally divorced from reality. And these were the ones that burn. We need to get to the top. And you don't have enough guns and enough Bradley infantry fighting vehicles to stop it. So you're going to need some help. So I suggest you get to know your military, your policing, your state and your federal authorities, and your intelligence community, don't you?
More weapons than the other one. The China one will be brief. I am really not worried about a conflict with China. China is a commercial maritime power that doesn't have a global navy. They have a large navy in terms of number of ships, though those ships are small, they don't have much reach, and they certainly don't have legs. So in the event...
But Peter, and they import all their high tech. But Peter, China's taking over the world, Peter. What do you talk? Peter Schiff told me, China, China, China. Oh my God, China, China's coming to get you. How do people actually not be able to think for themselves? How?
A war, the United States would basically sink the entire Chinese Navy in a couple weeks and then enact a embargo. And even if the United States got sucker punched really early and we lost even a couple of carrier groups, the embargo would still happen because it doesn't have to happen within sight of Chinese shores. That can be 3,000 miles away. And the Chinese economy would collapse in a matter of weeks. So this is the country that is the world's largest energy importer and food importer, and they import almost all of the raw materials that they need for their state to exist. So you would be looking at civilizational collapse in a matter of weeks to months. I don't worry about a war with China.
But Peter Schiff says the US dollar's going down and China's taken over. Peter Zion?
No problem getting ready for it. Russia's different. Russia's a land.
No, Russia's not different.
And the Russians see the current conflict as the opening innings of what they think will be the last great war of the Russian people. And they are planning on it involving us at some point. They're not going to stop at least until they get to a external buffer zone that they think is defensible. And that means reaching the Baltic Sea. That means reaching the Polish Gap at roughly Warsaw. That means reaching the Carpathian Mountains, which is on the far side of Ukraine. And eventually the Caucasus, which involves taking out Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia, and probably going into Central Asia as well. They're committed to this because this has been the doctrine of the Russians for at least the last 3 centuries. It's just, it's now a bald guy carrying out. Land wars are different. Land wars are fought on multiple fronts. Land wars involve taking territory and holding territory. So we will need it.
Okay, Pete, let me explain a couple of things. They had to stop production of the T-90 latest tank. It's got all this gyro stabilization and thermal imaging that all requires certain sensors and certain chips. And they've run out of all of this stuff. They can't get this stuff anymore, and they've laid off 10% of their workforce. Despite all the sanctions, everyone's going, look how clever Putin is. He wasn't bypassing the sanctions because no one ever applied them. Because Putin's role will be, after he's killed off his officer staff, will be to be built back up with US tech. They'll send him all the stuff he needs so he can be there scaring the Europeans into line and scaring the Chinese. And that is how the US will divide and conquer Eurasia. I'm not against that. I'm just wondering if you could do that a little differently with less dead. Just wondering. A bit like what you did in Gaza, because at the end of the day, Israel had no capacity to supply those 2,000-pound laser-guided bombs. That had to come from you, United States. So who's ultimately responsible for the literal genocide, ethnic cleansing of Gaza? And I'm just wondering if that was absolutely necessary. Even from the coldest geopolitical standpoint, was that necessary? So I still wonder who the hell is in control in the US. And I don't think it's an easy reactionary, the Jews are running everything. I just think it's a bunch of people negotiating around a table going, if you do that to us, we'll do this to you. And then the other side, well, if you do that to us, we'll do this to you. And finding that they're equally pus-ridden, filthy, corrupt, demonic scum, filth who demand immediate execution up against a fucking wall. But instead of that, they're going to do a deal. They're then going to put people in place if they can pull it off. And I don't think they're going to. I think that there's going to be a rebellion from the management class of the intelligence community and the state and federal authorities. The military is going to rebel. They're going to say, no fucking way. They're finding out. All right. And it's just going to be like Putin was put in place to protect Yeltsin and all his corrupt friends. And so the next generation have to come up and swear to Michael Hayden and John Brennan and all the shit for brains who allowed this to happen. They have to swear, we will make sure you never suffer indictment and prosecution, or a Senate hearing committee. $50 billion a year for what? What? Grandma and a few YouTuber conspiracy theorists can work it out. Chris Berlin could work it out. Do you see the trouble they're in? They can't go left, they can't go right. They have to just sit there and lie and stick something up their ass so they don't shit themselves and go, oh my God, we're doomed. And that's all they can do. And they're doing deals behind closed doors to decide who will live, who will die, who gets indicted, who doesn't get indicted. Will they have scapegoats and sacrificial lambs? Will they really be sacrificed, or will it just be a pretend Fauci indicted, Hayden indicted, but no one ever goes to jail? Because no one ever goes to jail, but times have changed. We'll see about that.
Least an order of magnitude more weapons for a conflict with the Russians. We had an opportunity a couple of years ago to really help out the Ukrainians, to break the back of the Russian military. The Biden administration was, to be perfectly blunt, too slow. And the Trump administration for the last year has basically backed out in a way that has really allowed the Russians to build out their industrial plant with help of the Chinese. They now have a lot of production capacity on the other side of the Urals.
It's not about any administration. It's the Department of Defense keeping the war going for as long as possible.
For those of you who study World War II, there's a lesson there.
Yeah, World War II. Yeah, where did all those plans come from in World War II? Professor Anthony Sutton, Soviet technology transfer, Major Jordan's diaries. See, let's talk about that, Peter. Come on, Candace Owens. Come on, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson's so busy rehabilitating Adolf Hitler, he can't even be bothered. Oh, the Soviets are so bad. Well, okay, we'll talk Wall Street and the rise of Hitler and all the details. Tucker, tell us about Professor Anthony Sutton. Not going to say a fucking word. But Tucker, you love all this old stuff. Candace, you love a bit of a mystery, a Scooby-Doo mystery. Why don't you talk about Professor Anthony Sutton and dazzle everyone with your research capabilities with your 15 staff edge? Tell us all about Professor Anthony Sutton, Wall Street and the rise of Hitler and Soviet technology transfer. How you created the enemies you sought to destroy. How the Soviet Union was a completely artificial edifice built up, particularly by the Roosevelt administration. And when General Patton spoke up, you killed him. When MacArthur spoke up in Korea, he upset the UN. You got rid of MacArthur, the mountain lion. I mean, you do realize, the mountain lion and Critters Christmas on good old South Park, the mountain lion is MacArthur. They were talking about how the Jews took over the world. Joseph McCarthy, you ruined him. Killed a lot of people along the way. And that's how they took over. And when the ultimate fulfillment was 1973, the Binational Science Foundation, Heinz freaking Kissinger. And that whole process through the 70s, they brought up the Holocaust bullshit, started making all the films. Good old Spielberg got his start with his bullshit Holocaust memoir crap. All right. And then they went into what? They built the religion of Holocaustianity as the cover. Then they started transferring the technology into Israel. They started creating the Islamic terror networks. They killed the good King Faisal and made Saudi Arabia into Wahhabist lunatic pieces of shit to make sure they kept putting their money in the right places. And they started funding the radical Wahhabist madrasas to create Islamic terror. They did the same 79. They took a generally pro-European, pro-US Iran. The Shah spoke out against Jewish power. Boom, he's gone. Now you have a radical theocracy brought in, a Wahhabist version for Shia, coming out of Germany and France, German and French intelligence, which is Rothschild. And they've been in there building these bullshit control mechanisms ever since, creating Islamic terror, creating the enemy, as they knew the old Soviet Union creation would crumble and they needed a new enemy to put in place all the movement control mechanisms and surveillance mechanisms. They could never get those implemented in a Cold War situation. Everyone would go, wait a minute, we're fighting the Soviets and tyranny and you're putting all this control shit in. Well, no. They lowered that down, then they brought in Islamic terror. And you see the building of that through the 1970s, which is the decade of decades. That's the decade when the technology started coming in. They realized what they could do, and they knew it was just a matter of time and these incremental tyranny, cybersecurity issues they were going to create. And you see the funding coming through in the 1970s. That was the biggest decade of all. Binational Science Foundation, the BIRD, the Binational Industrial Research and Development Foundation, and the BARD, the Binational Agriculture and Research Foundation, which was all shifting technology into Israel, the forming Federated States of Greater Israel, building to a 9/11 event so that the US would come, implement the Odi Jinon plan, fracture the Arab states, create a Sunni Shia split so they could get and smash the pan-Arab nationalism, and then take over the whole region using the power of the United States. And then when it had all been set up and the Federated States of Great Israel were being built, they would then get the US to shrink back into itself out of Eurasia, out of the Middle East, Russia and China under the complete control of the old Rothschild network, Gerhard Schroeder, hanging with good old Frankfurt schoolboy, their pedophile, disgusting piece of garbage, Vladimir Putin. And in 2002, when he was challenged by a real Russian nationalist, General Abed, they of course killed off General Abed. And so here we sit today. And you see how this is all transferred. 1970s were a key decade, absolutely key in the operation. Unfortunately, good old Peter Zion, with his cool, I must confess, I'm a little bit jealous of this. Oh yes, the grand chessboard, the knight. What's Knights of Malta? What is it? So we got a knight with a planet. And it looks like a computer chip, kind of. I guess that's his way of saying, talking about the grand chessboard. Or something else we can say. Interesting. Right, let's now move on quickly and briefly to General Flynn and good old Steve drunk dickhead Bannon. Now, here's something I prepared earlier. I screen recorded it because Rumble's always very iffy with the download and stuttering. So let's listen in now. They're going to talk about, we've got to get rid of the CIA, all this stuff. Yes, Russia, China, Cuba, the EU especially is very much hoping you will eviscerate and get rid of CIA and FBI counterintelligence especially. It's always very interesting whenever I watch stuff on what happened post-2001, you'll hear time and again FBI counterintelligence saying what happened with 9/11 was they took all our staff from counterintelligence and transferred them to counterterrorism looking for Muslim terrorists. The problem with that was, guess who walked in? Israel, Russia, China walked into the US. That really got going post-2001 because FBI counterintelligence was eviscerated. So I'm very much sure that China and Russia and a whole host of EU, Germany and France is very much hoping that these two clown pieces of shit, two disgusting wannabe Catholics, they're not Catholics, I mean, those pieces of shit, Bannon and Flynn are going to tell you to do the same thing, what Israel wanted done. Eviscerate FBI, CIA, counterintelligence. Yes, there's a lot of people, Steve, that are hoping you will do that.
First off, General Flynn, we have you on two reasons. Number one, you served in Afghanistan for a long time. You know the situation with these folks better than anybody, but also you were on Alex Jones show the other day, did this thing on the color revolution here in the country. General Flynn joins us, Mike Flynn. First off, General Flynn, we have you on two reasons. Number one, you served in Afghanistan for a long time. You know the situation with these folks better than anybody, but also you were on Alex Jones show the other day, did this thing on the color revolution here in the country that was a masterpiece. So let's do Afghanistan first. You know these units, they took, 60 to 100,000 Afghans?
Yes, what they did, the Afghan stuff, they bring in as many, what they do is kill as many Muslims as possible, humiliate as many Muslims as possible, denigrate their religion, their culture, their language, their customs with their Israeli/Russian Israeli friends. And then what they do is after we've killed you, your family, humiliated you, destroyed completely your infrastructure, what we do then is we then bring thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions in over time into the country. And now, oh my God, everybody, we have a Muslim problem. They're radical. And then, of course, they put their leadership people in, many of whom aren't even Muslims, pretend Muslims, Jews, whatever, undercovers, rats they've caught with pedophilia who work for them. And then they go up and go, Allah Akbar, let's kill all the Christians. And then they go, oh my God, look at all these people. They did the same thing with all the Mexicans, all the third worlders. They brought them all in across the border. So what? We're not going to talk about bankers. The word banker will not leave their stinking, filthy shit mouths ever. The Fed will not leave their stinking, shitty mouths ever. They will not talk about the central banking cartels or a Rothschild or a Kissinger. Who started all this? They will not talk about the history of Cecil Rhodes, the round table groups, the funding of the foundation system of funding. Thank you, Norman Dodd. The convergence of the US and Soviet Russia into a singular system, which they all advocate for in different words. They're not going to talk about that. They're going to talk about the color revolution. And you know what it was? It was Hillary. And it was Obama. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't even say Soros. That was unusual. Usually, you know, the right left, Kissinger, Soros of the grand chessboard of the Rothschild banking dynasty. You see, it's like, imagine we want to solve the drug trade, Iran-Contra, and all we talked about was the Bloods and the Crips out of LA and some little drug gang over here and an Italian organized crime over there. But never once did we mention the Bush and Clinton crime families in Mena, Arkansas and Barry Seal on Iran-Contra. Imagine never mentioning that. What would we say about that investigation into the drug trade? We'd say that's an obvious fucking fraud. And this is no different. I'm not going to take it any further. You're going to hear all the usual names. And they actively talk about taking down and eviscerating, getting rid of the FBI and the CIA. And you think, are these people serious? Are they fucking serious?
Into this country, what type of debacle was that, sir?
Yeah, first of all, these units I've worked very use of these weapons. Are they carrying knives? I mean, Obama is still in the mix here. Yeah, I think that right now, when we have to really take a hard look at what happened all the way back to 2016 under Obama, and I think that Obama is still in the mix here. I think the operational commander on the battlefield here
Oh, it's Obama, of course, in the spirit cooking bunker with the sperm cocktails with Hillary. Of course, everybody. Yeah. Can you hear the helicopter? Hope the sound suppression works. Woo, straight out of my house. That's why I can't fly my drone around here. Think you got problems.
United States of America is John Brennan. I believe that. I mean, it's my gut. I think that there's enough indicators out there for the types of activities that you look at what John Brennan has said, what he's been talking about. I do think that Obama is a part of the command structure. When we talk about, I'm putting it into military terminology, but I believe that
he wouldn't know military terminology. He's such a dickhead. It's Obama, everybody. It's Obama. The color revolution, the psychological warfare programs. When are you going to talk about good old Roger Stone's friendship with your good buddy, General Jim Jones, the NATO Marine psychological warfare general over there, starting up his own privatized intelligence, military intelligence group, profiling Americans, including applicants for security clearances, who's also running these crisis actors and these private Israeli companies. When are you going to talk about that? Can you not see the traitorous nature? And if you know this issue, how traitorous this piece of stinking, filthy shit truly is, that man is an enemy of the United States who needs to be executed. Executed. You think I'm joking and just amping it up? Execution for all of them. All of them. He works for the Crown Corporate. The Crown Corporate. He's a literal agent of Rothschild. And I've come to the belief that fucking Bannon is as well now. Whatever truth was in Bannon is gone, the old drunk piece of shit. They've got him by the balls.
that's part of the command structure. There is an international component to this. I call it the axis of resistance. The axis of resistance essentially...
The axis of resistance, there's a foreign component. We don't know what it is, but why go into details, you know?
Of communists, both that are emanating from the CCP's control.
It's the freaking Chicoms, man. Oh, jeez.
Also communists inside of our country. I mean, you know, if people don't believe that there's communists in Congress,
yeah, you're one of them.
Go look at the way that they voted to get rid of socialism. I mean, what was it? 92 didn't vote against socialism as part of the functioning.
My ears cannot listen to another second of this effing drivel. Drivel. The word Israel never leaves their lips. Do not ever overcomplicate the simplicity of the system, ever. They are running a narrative. Excuse me while I burp away my omega-3s. You want to believe. Look, how many of you rejoiced with Nick Fuentes? How many? With Tucker Carlson? How many? How many of you rejoiced when you look at Substack and it's just fuck the Jews, kill the Jews, we're getting you, your day is coming? How many of you rejoiced? How many of you rejoiced because Nick Fuentes is being pushed everywhere? How many of you rejoiced? Come on, you're pretty smart. Most of my audience is pretty clever, but it's a part of you went, good, get these fucking Jews once and for all. Wasn't it? You felt it. There's a little bit because you're just so sick of them. You're sick of, if you're an American, you're sick of being humiliated by them. You've probably got relatives that have been killed by their own leadership who started all this 9/11 stuff and killed your own family members, severely injured them, plus what they've done to the Arab world. I get it. I get it. But you can't see how you get someone's attention. I mean, why would the enemy promote someone like Nick Fuentes? Because the key is this. You get up and you scream. Imagine there's going to be a crackdown and New York people have demanded an end to the Italian organized crime gangs. John Gotti is the figurehead. And there's a mass movement now to have all the organized crime gangs crack down on. The police have got to be cleaned out, all the rest. And it's really growing and they're getting scared. Well, what would you do? Well, you would pay for a mayor. You would put that mayor in place, and that mayor would say as many harsh, we will deal with Italian organized crime. Who do they think they are? And then they would have groups on the street creating distractions, people to round up and keep people busy and distracted on other issues, demand police crackdowns, new national security apparatus to keep everyone protected. And you would always give it in vagaries. Instead of saying John Gotti, here's his associate, Bill Smith, Big Lenny, here's the indictment, here's the RICO indictment, here's their money laundering scheme, this is how it all works. See, that would be real, but these people don't. They get your attention. The Megyn Kellys and Candace Owens and Tucker Carlsons, it should be fucking obvious. Please tell me you can think for yourself. Understand psychological warfare programs. Understand control of the masses. Understand Edward Bernays, the manufacturer of consent. Understand that trillionaires don't just give up. They just build another system of control. And we would know it was real because the focus would be entirely on the central banking cartels, the history thereon, and also an immediate and rapid development of the takeover into the executive power of the Federal Reserve banking system and all central banks under the control of the United States. That would be the rhetoric, but you're not getting that. Them Jews. Just getting vagaries. They'll probably sacrifice Chabad, all the Siddim with those ugly little things. That's the brown shirts. That's the ugly Ernst Rum homosexual whack job sacrifice for the cameras. And you'll rejoice. And you'll rejoice. But they're not the enemy. They're just a visible sign to distract you. A burdensome stone, a thorn in the flesh to keep you distracted. The real people are in suits and they work on Wall Street. They're in the Federal Reserve. They own most of Congress. And they're in the central banking houses of Rothschild in London, Paris, France, Frankfurt, Germany, Bank of International Settlements there, Basel, Switzerland, Geneva. There's where they reside. And there's no stripping of their assets to be found. The NSA knows where all the accounts are hidden. There's more than enough digital zeros and ones to pay off all the fucking debt. There is no debt. We don't owe anything to anyone. There is no debt. It's just one giant big hamster circus wheel to keep us, the enemy, fighting each other, Mexicans hating Americans, Americans hating Mexicans, blacks hating whites, whites hating blacks, men hating women, women hating men, gay hating straight, straight hating gay, whether it's transgender, sexual orientation, fat versus skinny, color of one's skin, a value system we don't like. As long as we can get them all fighting down at the bottom, hating Mexicans, considering the elites let them all in the first place. The elites who want to round up all the Afghanis now and all those fucking Muslims, you let them in. First you kill and destroy their own country. I mean, imagine the nerve. Those Muslims have got to go. Well, fair enough. I think they should too. And you know what? Most of those freaking Muslims would leave when you fix the country you completely laid waste to, apologized profusely on your fucking knees for what was done, rounded up the fucking guilty, executed or locked them for life in Pelican Bay, and issued the biggest fucking apology you could ever possibly imagine. And yes, a lot of Muslims and Arabs and Afghanis will happily leave back to their own country. And despite the pain and misery visited upon them, which is 1,000 times worse than you'll ever fucking know, that you'll ever know, you know what might happen? You might find that respect, dignity, and even love for the United States would return. Because if we free the United States from pieces of shit like this is the real commie right here. The real servant of the crown corporate right there. Then America could free the slaves, as promised by our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ, whether you are religiously inclined or not. Free the slaves. Pluto is an Aquarius, and nobody gets out of here a fucking live. Talk to you again soon. Ciao for now.